Okay. Ya kan berdua, ya kan nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta alaihim. Okay, maintenance of the children. Okay, we haven't seen macam Madam Mas macam dah highlight dah. Not yet. Not even started, betul?
No.
Not yet, madam.
Okay. So section 92 mention duty to maintain children. If somebody here anybody asking for admission, I will come back to the main page to accept. Okay, so except where an agreement or order of court otherwise provides it of a parent to maintain or contribute to the maintenance of his or her children, whether they are in his or her custody or the custody of any other person, either by providing them with such accommodation, clothing, food and education as may be reasonable having regard to his or her means and station in life, or by paying the cost thereof. Okay, so there are two important things here. The first one is it shall be the duty of a parent. Okay, so the law mentioned the word parent there. Okay, so meaning that parent will be responsible to pay maintenance. Okay, and then when we go to the ingredients of maintenance there, what is the important difference between maintenance of the children and maintenance of the wife? What is the added value there? Education, right? Okay, so definitely when we are discussing with regard to maintenance of the wife, nothing mentioned, right? The provision does not mention with regard to education, but yes, in the case of children, because that is one of the essential elements of maintenance. Okay, so that is section 92, and then before we go to another section, might be we go to straight to 93, back to illustrate the case of Goh Kim Hua. Okay, power for court to order maintenance for children. The court may at any time order a man to pay maintenance for the benefit of his child. Okay, so subsection 1 mentioned that a man must pay maintenance first. And if you go to the textbook, mentioned in the textbook, in the case of Parkunan, okay, P-A-R-K-U-N-A-N, Parkunan mentioned that the man or the father is the primary person to be responsible to pay maintenance. Okay, so the father will be the primary person. Okay, even though subsection 2 mentioned that the court shall have the corresponding power to order a woman to pay or contribute towards the maintenance of a child where it is satisfied that having regard to her means it is reasonable so to order. Okay, so even though subsection 2 mentioned that there are possibilities that a woman will also be given the responsibility to pay, but the primary responsibility will be on the father. Okay, so then we might want to go to the case of Goh Kim Hua, where in this case the court ordered the husband or the father to pay 400 ringgit per month per child. Okay, the husband or the father was ordered to pay 400 ringgit per month per child. Okay, in the case of Goh Kim Hua. This rather old case, but still a good case to illustrate on the maintenance. Okay, and then because I've mentioned with regard to, we'll come back to the definition of the the child, because I've mentioned just now that to a certain extent, a mother will have the corresponding power to be ordered to pay maintenance. So we'll go straight to the case. There is a case of Liu Kui Hua, where in this case, the court came to the view that if both parents are earning, both are liable to maintain the children according to their means. Okay, so provided that both parents are earning, okay, both are liable to maintain the children according to their means. And in another case, Wong Kim Fong mentioned that in this case, the court ordered the mother to pay 400 ringgit while the father was ordered to pay 800 ringgit. Okay, of course, as what we have discussed just now, the primary responsibility to pay maintenance will go to the father. Okay, so that's the general rule. Nevertheless, in order to determine the quantum, the real amount, then definitely the means of both both father and mother will be taken into consideration. Okay, so coming to the definition of a child, what do you mean by child? If you go to section 87 of the LRA, mention wherever the context so requires, child has the meaning of child of marriage as defined in section 2, who is under the age of 18 years. Okay, so in general, a child is defined as a person who is below the age of 18 years. Okay, so in general, therefore, if we are talking about maintenance of the children, meaning that children who are under 18 years, okay, nevertheless, question might arise, what happened to the children above 18 years, whether you will still be entitled to maintenance from the parent. We'll see after this to answer the question. Okay, so section 87 need to read together with section 2, okay, of the LRA. Child of the marriage means a child of both parties to the marriage in question. Okay, so in normal marriage lah, right? Then Ah Chong and Ah Moy get married, then they have children, then that will be considered as child, okay? Child of both parties to the marriage in question. Or a child, nevertheless, it also includes a child of one party to the marriage accepted as one of the family by the other party. Okay, so for example, before the marriage between Ah Chong and Ah Moy already had 2 children, for example. Okay, so later they got married, and then Ah Chong agree child as his own children. Okay, so in this case, the liability to pay maintenance might also goes to Ah Chong. Okay, these again can be read together with section 99. Okay, cross-reference with section 99 of the LRA, which mentioned that, what does section 99 mention? Okay, duty to maintain child accepted of the family. Okay, where a man has accepted a child who is not his child as member of his family, it shall be his duty to maintain such child. Okay, so that is various examples of what do you mean by a child. Okay, and
Madam,
sorry, yeah,
I'm
anybody
sorry,
else?
but yes.
Okay, Madam tak dengar pun. Okay. Okay. So okay, and child in this context includes an illegitimate child of and a child adopted by either of the parties to the marriage in pursuance of an adoption order made under any written law relating to adoption. Okay, so meaning that if you adopt a child, then definitely that will be considered as your child, and this again need to be cross-referenced with Section 9 of the Adoption Act. Okay, so when we go to will highlight again that the moment you adopt a child, the child will be considered as yours as if the child was born within a wedlock. Okay, so that is with regard to the definition of a child. Okay, sorry, the word distinguish this case with the existing section 95 should be crossed, meaning that Madam lupa nak delete that word, just delete it. Okay. And then Saraswati mentioned that no need to divorce petition to be filed before section 93 could be invoked, meaning that if you want to ask for maintenance of the children, there is no need for you to bring proceeding for divorce first. There are situations where you need to bring proceeding for divorce, like in the case of matrimonial property, for example, which we will be discussed shortly. You need to have matrimonial proceeding first before you can ask for matrimonial property, but not in the case of maintenance of the children.
Madam,
Yes?
very
Okay. Oh, tak boleh masuk lagi. Mana dah admit dah. Boleh. Okay. Then I think can we go to the slide? That will be better. Oh, ada lagi? Is there anybody? Yes or no? Tak ada dah?
I think yes, madam.
Ada. Distract. Okay, can you enter Muhammad Nabawi and Aisyah? Are you here already? Because I'm coming to the slide. Not yet? Not yet. Cannot be admitted? Nabawi is in the group. I'm coming to the slideshow just now. Can I proceed? Not yet? Oh, tak payah pergi slideshow lagi lah. Okay. So, kat mana kita? Wong Kim Fong. Okay, we'll go straight. We have discussed this just now. Okay, so another important provision is of course section 1995. Okay, until when a child need to be maintained by the father or by the parent. Okay, so section 95 mention duration of custody and maintenance, for custody and maintenance. It shall expire on the attainment by the child of the age of 18 years or where the child is under physical or mental disability or is pursuing further or higher education or training on the ceasing of such disability or completion of such further or higher education or training, whichever is the latter. Okay, so this is actually an amended provision. Okay, which was enforced in December 2018. If you go to the site there, then you can see amended act there. Okay, so before this provision, there was some uncertainty with regard to the issue. Okay, because the amended one is the legislator just insert the word pursuing further or higher education or training. Okay, meaning that before this, there is nothing to such effect, and therefore, if we can see in the case of Punitambigai against Karunai Raja, there was we can see that the issue was highlighted in this case, where the child above the age of 18 but still in pursuing his education, higher education, asking for maintenance. And then the High Court mentioned that maintenance of child above 18 but still studying in, that's the issue, whether a child above 18 but still studying in tertiary education will be entitled to maintenance. Then the High Court said that father still liable to pay maintenance to the child, though he or she is above 18 years. Okay, so that's the judgment of the High Court. To a certain extent, what do we call, departed from the act at that time. Okay, before the amendment. Okay, so the High Court departed from the act at that time, because the act never mentioned about higher education, whatnot. Okay, but this case at the High Court level follow the case of Ching Seng Wah. Okay, Ching Seng Wah, which was decided by the Court of Appeal. Okay, so to a certain extent, the court in Court of Appeal departed from the literal meaning of the Act, Section 95. Okay, so there was an appeal to the Court of Appeal, and then the Court of Appeal agreed with the High Court. Yes, the father against appeal to the federal court, the apex court, and then the federal court said that since the child is above 18, father is no longer liable to give maintenance despite he or she is still studying. Okay, so in this case, federal court tried to say that the task of the court is only to implement whatever is in the law. Okay, because at that time the law did not mention about further or higher education, and therefore federal court said that we just try to interpret the law as it is in the provision. Okay, and it is the duty of Parliament to amend the law to include whatever that is suited to the society. Okay, so that was a comment in the case of Puni Tambikai at the federal court. Okay, so shortly later the law was amended to include the word pursuing further or higher education. Okay, so meaning that today the law was that if even though you are already above 18 but you are still pursuing your education training, then therefore you will still be entitled to maintenance from your parent as what you are now. Anybody still depending on parents? Yeah, Azri, you are independent or still depending on your parents?
Depending.
Depending, mashallah. Okay, so that is the situation. Why I still discuss Punitambigai, so that you know the background. That was the difficulty faced by various court in order to come to decision, and why federal court came to that decision. Okay, so that is section 95. Then we'll go straight to section 96 with regard to variation order, and we have discussed using the same case, Gisela Gertrude, with regard to variation orders for married women. For divorced women to vary orders. Okay, so similar case can be used. And then recovery areas of maintenance, and you can go straight to section 98. Then with that we finish on maintenance of the children. We'll go straight to another important subtopic or ancillary relief, which is division of matrimonial property. Can we go to the slideshow? Okay, so division of matrimonial property, section 76. Okay, this is another major amendment. This is one of the major amendment besides Section 51 with regard to conversion to Islam. There is one major amendment happened in the LRA, and this is, if I can say, a second major amendment to the law. That is Section 76. Okay, so Section 76 matters incidental to matrimonial proceedings, power for court to order division of matrimonial assets. Okay, Section 17.6 there. And then before we go to the definition of matrimonial property, I just would like to highlight the one that I have highlighted just now. The court shall have power, subsection 1, the court shall have power when granting a decree of divorce or judicial separation to order the division. Okay, mention clearly that you are not allowed to petition for matrimonial property, division of matrimonial property, unless and until you bring first the matrimonial proceeding, either in the case of divorce or judicial separation. Okay, then only you can ask the court to further discuss or further decide with regard to matrimonial property, unlike in the case of maintenance of the children just now. Okay, so there is no need for divorce proceeding. Okay, and then we'll go baca dulu, then we'll come back to the definition. The court shall shall have power when granting a decree of divorce or judicial separation to order the division between the parties of any assets acquired by them during the marriage, or the sale of any such asset, and the division between parties of the proceeds of sale. Okay, you are given the right to ask for the division, but first we'll discuss what do you mean by matrimonial property. Okay, what do you mean by matrimonial property? Basically refers to property which was acquired during the marriage. Simple enough, right? Whatever property that was acquired during the marriage. Meaning that Ah Chong and Ah Moy get married today. Tomorrow they acquired the property, then that will be considered as basically matrimonial property because it was acquired during the marriage. Okay, and but the LRA does not really define what do you mean by matrimonial property. Okay, so we'll go to the cases. This is a case I've mentioned just now, Ching Seng Wah, with regard to the maintenance just now, where High Court relying on this case. Okay, that is from a maintenance point of view, but now we are concentrating on the matrimonial property. In this case, Ching Seng Wah against Lim Shuk Ling, the word matrimonial property was defined as anything acquired during the marriage, including matrimonial house. That's the most important ingredient of matrimonial property might be matrimonial house, saving in the bank. Okay, so therefore we can understand that matrimonial property might include movable as well as immovable property. Saving in the bank can be considered as movable property, right? Saving in the bank, EPF, shares, investment, etc. Okay, so that's the meaning of matrimonial property. Okay, so mention about EPF just now, right? So we'll go a little bit on EPF, still on what do you mean by matrimonial property. Okay, so in the case of Lim Quen Quen, the court recognized EPF as a matrimonial property and liable to be divided upon divorce. Okay, so why the court says that EPF should be considered as matrimonial property. Why? Because the argument is that if the EPF contributions were not deducted from the wages or salary of the worker, it should have gone to providing for himself and the family. Okay, so imagine if, for example, Ah Chong getting married with Ah Moy, Ah Chong bring back to the family 1,000 ringgit, for example. Okay, but instead of bringing back 1,200 ringgit, for example, he just bring back 1,000 ringgit because that 200 ringgit is kept for EPF contribution. Okay, so the argument is that uh, because Ah Chong bring back only 1,000 ringgit, might be it is not enough, for example. Okay, so therefore Ah Moy need to wake up in the morning, prepare nasi lemak, okay, to be sold to whoever lah. Okay, so therefore, the argument is that during that period of time, Ahmoy has sacrificed to help Ah Chong to to meet the ends needs, right? Meaning that to make sure that the family can get enough money for the expenses of the family. Okay, so therefore, if later on there is a divorce, the argument is that it's unfair that Ah Chong alone, Ah Chong alone will benefit or can benefit from the money of the EPF. Okay, while all this while Moy contribute so much towards the welfare of the family, towards the expenses of the family. Okay, so that's the argument. Okay, so the similar decision can be seen, you read on your own Parkunan. This is the case I mentioned with regard to the maintenance just now. Primary responsibility of the husband is, primary responsibility to pay maintenance towards the children is on the father, Parkunan. Okay, we'll go straight to the case of Linda Herawati. I think some of you have presented the case, right? And I want to read the case because you can use the case to illustrate many principles: divorce, maintenance, how much the husband was gave to the wife in the case of Linda Herawati, for example, and then another case is, yes, matrimonial property. Okay, so in the case of Linda Herawati, the court came to the view that EPF was considered as matrimonial property. Okay, and then another case that I want to highlight, Shantini Pillay. Okay, is another important case because just to highlight the different decisions of the court taking into consideration the facts of the case. Okay, so in this case, Shantini Pillay, which is rather recent case, 2019, Shantini Pillay, anak perempuan, I think also presentation might be. Okay, so Shantini Pillay, anak perempuan Narayana Sami. Okay, so what happened in this case was that the half of the husband's EPF. Okay, the wife demanded half of the husband's EPF. Okay, so the facts of the case disclose that the matrimonial assets in this case was divided equally between the husband and the wife. Okay, between the petitioner wife and the respondent husband. And then as well as including what are the matrimonial property, including mutual fund, as well as the balance in the bank account. Okay, so all of these were divided equally between the respondent husband as well as the petitioner wife. Okay, so therefore, in this case, the court commented that the court stated that EPF saving could not EPF saving could not be granted to the wife. Why? Because the court commented that the husband needed to continue with his life after the divorce and he needed to have sufficient means to do so as he is a retiree and therefore EPF should be exclusively given to the husband without any division. Okay, so therefore you can see how the court decided the case. Okay, it doesn't mention that EPF did not come within the meaning of matrimonial assets, but taking into account the situation in this case, the court feel like it is rather fair to remain or to give only to the husband his EPF. Okay, so that's Shantini Pillay. Okay, and another case to illustrate with regard to what do you mean by matrimonial affairs, matrimonial property. In the case of Wong Kim Fong, where in this case the court said that shares and investment are matrimonial property. Therefore, you can ask for the division of the property. Okay, so before we embark on details with regard to section 76, subsection 2, the new provision, I just highlight a little bit with regard to the old law. So that, because there are many cases, right, discussing with regard to the old law, so that you can really understand what is the important difference between the old and the new law. Okay, so inshallah today we'll be going to discuss with regard to the new law, but I just highlighted a little bit. Okay, so under the old law, the two famous words under the old law are or were joint effort as well as sole effort. Okay, so you can see subsection 1 and 2 are discussing with regard to joint effort, subsection 3 and 4 discussing with regard to sole effort. Okay, but these words were deleted under the new law. There's no more words joint effort as well as sole effort. The only words is matrimonial property. Why? Because there were comments mentioning that it's rather misleading. The word joint effort as well as sole effort is rather misleading, especially joint effort. What do you mean by joint effort? Is it direct contribution, direct financial contribution only, or if you pay indirectly towards the expenses of the family, for example, shouldn't that also be considered as contribution to the acquiring of the asset of the family? Okay, so that's among the discussion or amongst the issue. Therefore, they decided to delete the word joint effort as well as sole effort, and they also include two important additional factors which were not there under the old law. There is duration of the marriage. If you go to the cases keep on referring to this, but not clearly does not exist or did not exist in the old law. Okay, so the duration of the marriage as well as the extent of contribution by each party in payment of expenses for the benefit of the family. Okay, we'll discuss shortly what do you mean by all this. And under the new law, they will be inclined towards equality of division. But under the old law, in the case of joint effort, it will be generally equality of division. But in the case of sole effort, the property will usually be divided into 1/3 and 2/3. 2/3 is the one who solely acquired the property. 1/3 will be given to the one who does not acquire the property. Okay, so at least you can get some idea with regard to the old law. Now we concentrate on the new law. Definitely is more important because this is the applicable law today's. Okay, in exercising the power conferred by subsection 1, that is in order to divide the property, the court shall have regard to A. Okay, A, the extent of the contributions made by each party in money, property or work towards the acquiring of the assets or payment of expenses for the benefit of the family. Okay, so the new law feel like even though you do not directly contribute in terms of money, property or work, but you pay, you still spend money for the expenses of the family, indirectly, that is considered as your good contribution. Okay, so that's why the new law mentioned all payment of expenses for the benefit of the family. Okay, we'll go to cases after this to illustrate. But coming back to money, property or work. Okay, money, everybody understand, right? What do you mean by work? Or what do you mean by property? Okay, so this is more on direct contribution, right? That is, if the the bangunan, sorry, the building or the house worth 100k, for example, then Ah Chong contributes 50k, Ah Moy contributes 50k. That is monetary contribution. Nevertheless, might be there are cases where Ah Moy did not contribute in terms of money, but Ah Moy contributes in terms of property, right? Because being the daughter of the owner of the cement factory or bricks factory, right? So instead of providing cash, Ah Moy provided the bricks, the cement, the whatever lah, okay, to build the property, for example. Definitely that will be considered, as well as the work towards the acquiring of the assets. Okay, so siapa boleh bagi contoh the work that has been directly contribute by Ahmoy, for example? What is it, the work? We discuss under Islamic law, right? And I've given you the example of work. What is it? Everybody is still in the class?
Yes, madam, we are.
Yeah, okay. So what's the good example of work? Lupa habis dah belajar? For example, right, siapa nama? Ahmoy, right? Ahmoy is a very strong lady, right? Okay, so Ahmoy said that I have no money to contribute, but I have my lots of energy. Okay, so Ahmoy helped the contractor to build the building, right? To arrange the bricks, to fix the tile, to paint the house. All those will be considered as the direct contribution or work contributed by Ahmoy. Okay, and then you might save so much money instead of asking the contractor, the worker, to build the building, but Ahmoy contributed a lot of her energy, being a very strong woman, for example. Okay, so that's example of work, right? Okay, the case to illustrate is the case of Phua Beng Hong. Just to illustrate that what happened in this case was that the okay, sorry, Phua Beng Hong. In this case, the property that was in dispute was a Toyota motor car. Okay, so in this case, it was shown that the money to buy the Toyota motor car came from the joint account of both husband and wife. Okay, so therefore, this case tried to illustrate that both husband and wife directly contributed towards the acquiring of the property in terms of monetary contribution. Okay, why? Because the money to buy the motor car came from the joint account. Okay, so that is Phua Beng Hong. And then we'll go to the second part there, all payment of expenses for the benefit of the family. Okay, as I've mentioned just now, the court take into consideration the payment or expenses um, sorry, before we come to this issue, sedikit note there. In the case of a brief marriage, the court would normally incline to divide the property according to the parties' respective financial contribution. Might be there are not much other things that need to be taken into consideration because it's only 1 year marriage, for example, very brief marriage. Therefore, the direct contribution made by the party will be the main major consideration. Okay, so that is what this note meant. Okay, so we'll come straight to the second important element there. There is all payment of expenses for the benefit of the family. This can be seen in the case of, again, you can go to the case of Linda Herawati, for example, where in this case, while the husband paid for to buy a few property, the wife, Linda, in this case, provided for the household expenses, buying the groceries, paying the might be not in this case, but might be in some other case, paying the maid salary, for example. Okay, so grocery, to upkeep the house, you buy the cleaner, whatever. Okay, so that is considered as payment of expenses for the benefit of the family. Okay, so that was taken into consideration in the case of Linda Herawati, as well as the old case of Teh and Kim, where in this case, the fact disclosed that it was the understanding of the parties, that the husband paid for the monthly installment to buy the matrimonial house, while the wife will be paying for the maintenance and upkeep of the house. Okay, sometimes you need to use more money for the upkeep and maintenance of the house, right? You need to pay whatever it is so much, especially on food, like for example, to maintain the house, salary of the maid, for example, all that come within the meaning of payment of expenses for the benefit of the family. Okay, so that is Teh and Kim. Okay, then another factor, AA there, okay, another important factor that will be taken into consideration by the court is the extent of the contributions made by the other party who did not acquire the assets to the welfare of the family by looking after the home or caring for the family. Okay, so what is the important difference between payment of expenses for the benefit of the family and welfare of the family? Okay, number one, subsection A relates more towards the indirect money used to pay for the benefit of the family. Okay, but AA referred more to the tenaga, sorry, the energy that you use to take care of the home, caring for the family, looking after the family, sending children to school. Okay, so that's the energy that you use. Okay, so that definitely will be taking into consideration when you want to divide the property later. Okay, so rather similarly, the argument is that if you do not take care of the family, then you can go to look for the job yourself and earn money and buy property on your own. But you sacrifice a lot for the family, looking after the children, cooking for the family, whatsoever, then in the event of divorce, then you will still be given some of the property. In other words, without your help, it's almost impossible. Boleh gunakan impossible. It is rather hard for the husband, for example, to look for or to buy the property himself without the help of the wife. Okay, that is AA. What is the time now? Can we proceed with the case? AA, yes, right. Okay, so the case to illustrate is the case of watch tell, English case, just to illustrate. In this case, the court say that, then you can look for this case in the textbook. Okay, in this case, the court said that the wife who looks after the home and family, okay, the wife who looks after the home and family contributed as much to the family assets as the wife who goes to work. Okay, so that's the decision in watch tell. Okay, the wife who looks after the home and family contributed as much to the family assets as the wife who goes to work. Okay, and similarly in the case of Yak Kim Swee, for example, the court took into consideration the wife contribution towards the family and looking after the home. Okay, and Li Yulan, for example, the court also take into consideration the fact that the wife looking after the children and the house, and so many other cases. Okay, so just to illustrate that the fact that you spend so much time and so much energy to look after the children and home is considered as one important factor that need to be taken into account by the court in order to, in the case of matrimonial property. And then B, any debts owing by either party which were contracted for their joint benefit. Of course, definitely that need to be taken into consideration, right? You take a loan, a bank loan for 200K, for example, and then you buy the property, and when there is a divorce, the balance is still 100K, for example, then definitely that will be taken into consideration, or else will be very unfair, right? The needs of the minor children, if any, of the marriage. Okay, so usually in the case of the need of the minor children, one thing that will be taken into consideration, especially with regard to the matrimonial house. Okay, so as far as possible, the court try not to sell the matrimonial property in order to make sure that the status quo of the children will be preserved. What do you mean by the status quo of the children will be preserved? Because all this while the children were living in that house and they have school nearby, right? And they have friends nearby. Then as far as possible, the divorce should not have disrupted this status quo while the children are happy to go to that school, happy to have this kind of friend, for example. Okay, so as far as possible, the court tried to make an arrangement that the matrimonial home especially will not be sold. Okay, because if it is sold, then they need to move to another house, another place, another friend, whatnot, and that will really give a big impact to the children who are already being impacted very much with the divorce of the parents. Okay, and then duration of the marriage. Boleh lagi, Azri?
Yeah, yes, but I think we can.
Boleh lagi. Macam sebesalah je nak sebut, boleh?
Yeah, for 1 or 2 minutes more. I think we can.
Masya Allah, Azri. Kesian ke Azri ya. Okey lah. Dah 53 ya. Okey lah. So insyaAllah we'll stop here, and insyaAllah we'll continue with duration of marriage. Okay, everybody.